Hello, team. Good morning, and welcome back to another episode of History, live from Mr. D'Amico's recording studio in Cranford, New Jersey. We are happy to bring you another edition of social studies videos. So today is our second video on World War One. We've done 2 days so far. I gave you guys like the really brief introduction, and then you guys did like those do now type of questions last week, if you guys remember, where I asked you guys about like rivals and about, what would you do with your allies? Would you support them? Are there some cases where you wouldn't support your allies? So we have a pretty good, at least base, I think, a basic, foundation for some of our knowledge for World War One, which is the Great War, the war that they said was going to end all the wars, one of the greatest conflicts, I guess you can say, in all of world history that really only lasted 4 years, but changed so much about the world, changed so many different dynamics about the world. It's what made America, really helped emerge America as a superpower of the world. It was, dozens and dozens of countries fighting against each other with new technology, with new, using airplanes and using gas and subs and tanks and all this new technology, and then trench warfare. So today we're going to dive in just a little bit more. We'll talk about some of the things that actually led to the war, some of the alliances, imperialism, militarism, technology, some things like that. And then we'll dive into a little bit, talk about one of the main players, I guess you can say, in the war, Germany. And we're going to learn about someone named Otto von Bismarck, Kaiser Wilhelm II, and how Germany really contributed to the start of World War One. Okay? So hope you guys are doing awesome. It's May the 4th. May the 4th be with you today. And beautiful day out. We're going to have a nice week together. And things are looking up. It looks like a beautiful week in the forecast. So go outside, go get some fresh air, go enjoy yourselves. And, I got about a month and a half left of school. So time's flying. So stay well, keep working hard. And like I say, every video, and whenever I see you or talk to you, I miss you guys. So stay well, keep doing your thing. Okay. So like always, there'll be some questions that go with this. Just going back to some of the pictures we did last week. So this is World War One, and this picture here really encompasses World War One. Okay, so this is what's called trench warfare, which we'll discuss later on. But put this picture deep in your head. This is really what a lot of the fighting in World War One looked like. It was a bloody stalemate. It was disgusting. The conditions were bad. You could see this man's feet here. I mean, people dying left and right. I mean, death on mass scales, and not quick, easy deaths that were drawn out, that were painful, that required amputation, so these people's lungs and organs were infected. I mean, just a very tough, challenging war, really on both fronts, on both the Western Front, which this is more of, and then the Eastern Front as well, which we'll talk about. New technology we discussed in World War One: airplanes, machine guns. They call it the Maxim gun. They had larger cannons. Just war on a mass scale. And this is the question that I think I left you guys with last time. A lot of really great answers from you. This war, World War One, is everybody getting everybody's backs. It was, okay, hey, UK, England, you want to join the war? Okay, we're France. We've been allies for a long time. I got your back. And then let's say maybe Italy was France's ally. Italy's going to come in and say, well, France, I don't really have anything to do with England per se, but I'm friends with you, France, so I got your back. And then other countries jump in, I got your back, and it just winds up being this mass conflict between the Triple Entente and then you could call them the Allied powers if you want to, but they're also called the Central powers in this war. You have your Central versus your Triple Entente, but it grows and grows and grows. And then, I ask you, what should countries always support their allies no matter what? Is there like a time where you guys would draw the line? You guys, some of you had great answers. A lot of you, I think, steer towards the side of no for the first question, where you shouldn't. That was a lot of the answers I got. Like, you shouldn't just support no matter what. It would depend on the scenario. A lot of you guys said that it would depend on how long you've been friends with them, in a relationship with them, I guess, or, allies with them, why they're going to war. Is it worth it for your country? And I appreciate how a lot of you guys mentioned in your responses, well, I might want to go to war, but I'm concerned with my citizens of my country. I would take, although a vote is not really practical, hey, America, do you want to go to war? Should we go to war? Have a vote? But a lot of you guys did take your citizens and your people into account, which was really nice. And then for number two, a lot of you guys wrote for the long-term consequences that you might lose that ally. And a lot of you guys put that, you're thinking, is it worth it? If I just ditch my ally in war, if I'm Austria-Hungary and I ditch Germany and I say, I don't have your back here, they might not have your back next time. So it's a lot of extremes, but really appreciate a lot of your answers here. And we looked at a lot of the countries involved, and then this is where we're going to start today. So instead of having you guys write this in your notes or in your notebooks today, just look at it, just listen, and instead I'm going to ask you some questions based off these causes, based off this PowerPoint slide. So again, don't write this in your notebooks. You don't have to write this down in notes. If we were in school, you would be. But for today, just absorb it, take it in, and then answer the questions on the form that have to go with this, okay? So this is a really important slide. What the heck caused World War I? Why are countries fighting? And there's going to be a major cause down the road. The assassination of somebody named Franz Ferdinand, Archduke Franz Ferdinand. That's going to be kind of like the tipping point. But let's look at before. Okay, how did problems, why were these rivalries started in Europe? War doesn't just break out, 1 second. Okay, let's fight. No, there's a lot of backliers, a lot of things that caused it before. Okay. So the first one we're going to look at here is called militarism. And before we even dive into them, this is a really simple way to remember. If someone asked you, why did World War I happen? There's a great, very simple acronym for it with 4 letters. M for militarism, A for alliance system, I for imperialism, and N for nationalism. What does that spell? It spells Maine, M-A-I-N, not like the state, but Maine. So if someone asked you, okay, what were the main causes of World War I? Boom, this is a great, simple way to remember it, and I'll explain what each of these means. So Maine, militarism, alliance systems, imperialism, and nationalism. So the first one is militarism. Sounds a lot like the word military, right? So militarism is this new policy that started to emerge in the powerful countries of Europe. The glorifying. What does it mean to glorify something? To make it seem cool, to make it seem good. Glorifying military power. Always keeping a prepared army ready to go no matter what. Like we discussed recently, the Industrial Revolution, a lot of those industrial factories were now turned into places for munition. So a lot of countries, again, they're glorifying their military power. They're increasing the size of their army. They're increasing the size and power of their navy if they have access to water and a navy. They're increasing spending. For example, Germany is a big player in World War I. Germany increased their spending leading up to World War I 73%. So let's say they were spending, we'll keep it real simple numbers. Let's say they were spending $100 for every $100 they were spending on war. Now leading up to World War I, they added another $73 to that. So now instead of spending $100 for every $100 Germany was spending, they were spending $173. So, long story short, a lot of countries basically improved how much they were spending. A lot of countries too lengthen in Europe, that is, lengthen their terms of service, which means when you go enlist, maybe some of you guys might have a future in this, who knows? When you go enlist in the Army or the armed forces, whatever it might be, you don't just show up and say, okay, I'm going to fight until I feel like it and leave. No, you typically sign like a contract or some sort of a deal or a term of service where you enlist for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. I'm not honestly sure how many years it would be, but now a lot of these European countries, Germany, France, England, Italy, Serbia, Austria-Hungary, whatever it was, they now extended their terms of service. So now instead of when you sign up for the Army and it used to be 3 years, now it might have been 5 years or 6 years. So now they're building up their military slowly, almost like an arms race. So that was another big cause, another part that leads to militarism. Let's see, munitions factories. Yeah, a lot of them now they're making bullets, they're making tanks, they're making even gas masks or shells, or they basically totally ramped up their military production. And this all goes basically with militarism. There was some cooperative planning between the countries, which we'll get into next with alliance systems. But basically, militarism is just the growth of military and defense spending. So that's a big cause of World War I. And it wasn't necessarily countries pointing their guns at each other and saying, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's get ready. It was almost just like a background preparation from like the early 1900s up until the start of World War I, which was in 1914. Okay. So that's M. Now the A in alliance system. So now the A is, or the A in Maine, I'm sorry, is alliance system. So now all throughout Europe, there were some peaceful alliances, but also some secretive alliances on the side, kind of under the radar a little bit, sprouting all these alliance systems, alliance networks all throughout Europe. And a lot of these powerful countries, remember, we're also coming off the Napoleonic Wars where Napoleon and France had all the power. So actually, crazy enough, many European powers were actually focused on keeping peace. And they thought, what better way to keep peace than to create an alliance, to create some friendships amongst ourselves? But then everybody, unfortunately, can't be friends with everybody, right? It's just not, everybody doesn't have the same interests. Everybody in the world is not friends with each other. Sometimes no matter how hard we try, we just don't see eye to eye, right? So there wound up being multiple networks that were entrenched in each other and intricate and almost like a tangled web of alliance systems. So eventually those 2, 3, 4 alliance systems are going to form into 2 main ones, but they're kind of intermingled. So alliances sound good, right? Okay, we're going to keep peace. We're going to be friends. It's like when, I don't know, maybe I'm trying to compare it to like school or to you guys or something. Maybe, you see someone, you're like, I don't want to fight with you anymore. Let's just be friends. Let's just put the water under the bridge. Maybe eventually it doesn't always end up as perfect as you'd want it to be. Okay. So those are our first 2, militarism and alliance systems. Now we're going to go to the I, which we've already discussed. So I'm not going to go crazy into it, but I is imperialism, right? Do you guys remember what imperialism is? Imperialism is when one group of people basically does what? They basically take over another group of people because they're more powerful than them or because of social Darwinism. Remember that word. So now imperialism really emerges, and a lot of the European countries are imperializing or taking over what continent? Africa. And why are they doing it? What does Africa have a lot of? Well, they have a lot of raw materials, right? They have a lot of the different energy sources, iron and coal and even gold and all these things. So many different materials, raw materials, products that the European countries needed. So now, although they're not necessarily fighting, you're not going to have European countries fighting in Africa. That's my coal. That's my resource. There's still that competition. So now there's a rising growth in competition for territory, for arms, for materials, for a lot of different things. So that's a huge thing that leads up to. You could kind of see that if there was just one of these causes here, probably a world war, the Great War, the war to end all wars, probably wouldn't have happened. But it's kind of a combination of multiple things. And that's typically what does lead to wars. But it's a combination of many, many things that truly trigger a war. Okay. And the last one here is nationalism. So nationalism, I'm sure we've heard that word before. Nationalism, or in America, sometimes we call it patriotism. It's when you truly love your country or your state or your group. It's nationalism. It's intense competition, which creates there was intense competition, which created European tensions. But countries took so much pride in themselves and their leaders, like Kaiser Wilhelm II, which we're going to talk about, and Otto von Bismarck. These people, they made it seem like it's like our country or nothing. Like you have to be all in. You have to love our country. We're nationalism. We're the best. We're supreme. We're better than everybody. And that could be a really good thing, this intense patriotism, this love for your country. But it could also be kind of dangerous. Why can such extreme all-in nationalism be dangerous at times? Think about it. I'm going to use that as one of my questions. So I'm not going to give you the answer to it. But think about why nationalism could be a really great thing with pride. But then think about why nationalism in this, again, extreme pride and love for your nation, for your group, could also sometimes be a negative thing. So let's think about that a little bit, okay? And how was nationalism spread? Through something called propaganda, right? Remember, we did the Boston Massacre propaganda. We talked about different pieces of propaganda, paintings and music and artwork and, love. Like, I'll compare it to today a little bit. Let's say America right now was leading up to World War One. You might turn on the television and see a TV commercial that says, maybe a cartoon or maybe a real clip from the military that might say, America's the best country in the world. Support us now. Donate. Buy military bonds. America's great. And you might walk outside and go to ShopRite or go to Walmart and see a huge poster that says like pride, America, love for our country. I mean, some people, it's almost like if everybody hung the American flag up around the whole country, but then others took it a little bit further too and put like, down with other countries. America's the best. So that's trying to kind of hint at your response here. So nationalism was a big part that contributed to some of the complexity and contributed to some of the tension across Europe. Okay. And last but not least here, what did every country have? So what did, why were countries, what did these main leaders, no pun intended, mean? What did these powerful nations across Europe and across the world, what were some things that they took pride in? Okay, well, Russia's going to be involved. What did Russia have? They had a huge, massive army. So Russia was very prideful of that. They were very nationalistic about their huge army. We're the best. We have the strongest army. We have so many people, hundreds of thousands of troops ready to go to war now. Okay. Germany was very proud because they were now unified. We're going to discuss in our last slide of the day, which is our next one, why Germany was so strong. But they had this Prussian military technique. So they were very prideful of that they were now unified, that they had this powerful way of fighting. England, they had a lot of things, but England typically in the 18th, 19th, even 20th century, even today, 21st century, they really prided themselves on their navy, on their force on the water. England's always had a strong navy, especially back to the Revolutionary War. But even today, obviously they're almost basically fully surrounded in water, so they need that as well. France took pride in their industry. And their, factories and their munitions, things like that. So these are just things that you could take pride in. Like, for example, today, some Americans are very nationalistic about the size and power of our Army and our Navy and our armed forces and our Navy SEALs and our, any of the armed forces, really. So people are very nationalistic about that, or nationalistic about America's wealth across the board, or maybe our economy, depending on the day. But again, those are some of the causes that lead to the war here. Okay. So we're about halfway done already. So Maine. Need some water. Okay, so this just shows you, I'm going to ask you a question on this definitely. This shows you spending. So World War I starts in 1914. This goes back to 1903. I wish I had my laser pointer so I could flash it. I missed that too. This shows you how much total some of the major countries around the world were spending in the years leading up to World War I, and eventually how much they were spending the year right before World War I. So Germany was a big one that we discussed. They were spending $286 million in 1908. And then 5 years later, it almost doubles. It goes up, like we said, around 73%. So you could see the great increase of spending. America's a little bit more, I guess, liberal with their increase on spending, not as much, more conservative, more kind of like laid back. With the increase on spending, Japan, not as much as some of the other ones. Great Britain really ramps up their military spending and production. France really goes up. So you guys can see, back to the spending, back to militarism, the country really built up, in terms of their spending. These are called cannery girls in England. And you could see this possibly before this was a textile factory, or a factory where something else was produced. And now going into World War I, we talked about how it was, what do you call a war where everybody is involved, not just the armies, all the citizens? Call that a total war, okay? So a total war, here you have women and even sometimes even children, if they needed to, working in factories, doing everything they can for their country. So this particular factory was turned into a place that makes, bombshells, that makes these shells or mortar shells that could possibly again be shot out of a large cannon or a mortar or artillery fire, or even eventually dropped off a plane. Even though you guys read in your one of your descriptions that the original fighting out of planes was people flying around in planes and literally throwing rocks at each other. So that was like the first plane or aerial warfare. But this just shows you total war. This machine gun here is called the Maxim machine gun, a big invention. It wasn't just a musket anymore. Now we have weapons of, I guess, this was like a weapon of like mass destruction, something that could take out multiple people at a time. And then some of the military technology, again, the machine gun, the submarine. It's crazy because this was the first war where all of these things were put together. So you can just imagine the mass scale. And this is called rationing. Americans had to do it during World War I, more so during World War II. But now a lot of the powerful countries involved in World War I, once the war starts, they're sacrificing some of their daily meals, some of their daily drinks, coffee, tea, bread. And you could see some of the rations here. It's very interesting. And why would countries want to ration? Why would countries need to ration? I'm going to ask you a question on that too. Why was sugar rationed? Why could every adult or child only have a half a pound? That sounds like a lot. Half a pound of sugar a week in, let's say, Russia, or why in I don't know, in Italy can bread for women on ordinary industrial work can have bread, but 4 pounds per week or per head per week, which again sounds like a lot, but these were staples of their diet. So why is butter and margarine? Why are things rationed? And to ration something is to limit it. Why were citizens limited in the amount of food that they could eat? Apparently not potatoes, though. Have all the potatoes you want. So we'll talk about rations. I'll give you guys a question on that. People had ration books. You would write your name down and say, okay, here's my daily allotment. You would get this big book, for every couple months. And it would almost be like food stamps or like food coupons. Like you can go to the store and, okay, you want to buy your bread for the month or for the week? Where's your coupon? You can only use it once and then you can't come back and get more bread. Here's some of the, I know I'm going fast today. I want to try to keep it a little shorter. Some of the alliance systems, you can see there's like, what are these called? The circles are called Venn diagrams. There we go. A little rusty. These are some of the different alliance systems. You could see how they're intermingled. How, for example, let's look at Italy, right? Italy has a relationship or alliance with Austria-Hungary and Germany. Do they necessarily have a relationship with the Ottoman Empire, the Balkans, that area? Not directly, but they have a mutual friend, Germany. So this is the type of thing I'm discussing that will lead to, the war. It's the fact that Italy and Germany are friends, so they're going to drag the Ottoman Empire into it, or it's just going to go on. And there's even some big crossover here from the Triple Entente to the Triple Alliance to the Central Powers, where even Russia, who was really on the Triple Entente side, actually had a relationship with one of the Balkan states, which had a relationship with the Triple Alliance. So a lot of complicated, complex relationships. And then here's imperialism, which we discussed already, competition for Africa. And some of the propaganda. Come on, buddy, it's your fight too. Turn out more guns and ammunition. So this might be, think about who this might be targeting, what country this might be. What's the message here? What is this political cartoon trying to target? What's the message behind it? It's your fight too. What's the message here behind this propaganda, behind this? I guess you could kind of call it a political cartoon, something to send a message to people. And how about this one? It says, will you help the women of France save wheat? You can read the little description on the bottom. They're struggling against starvation and trying to feed not only themselves and children, but their husband and sons who are fighting in the trenches. So this one actually says United States Food Administration. So a little bit of a crossover there between the relationships. Lend your 5 shillings to your country and crush the Germans. This one's it's a really interesting piece of propaganda there. I'm sure we've all seen this one before. I actually used to see this outside my gym, except not for U.S. Army. It would say, like, I want you to join the gym. But another interesting piece there. Okay, and then let's cruise. This is going to be our last slide of the day, guys, and then we'll move on to the actual start of the war. I know I'm going quickly, so keep on. If you have to pause it, you can pause it. Do what you got to do. But now we're going to look at some other themes continued. So some other. How do I fit in with these two great German leaders of the past here? Kaiser Demiko, we'll call me. No. 1, 2, 3. Okay. All right. So these are some other causes of World War I here. So as we see in the first bullet point here, we have advances in weaponry, which we discuss. And again, you guys don't have to write this down. Just answer the questions as we go. But think about, again, the mass destruction, guns, airplanes, tanks. They lead to mass devastation, almost like a Call of Duty. Just to compare it and to kind of make it similar to something that you guys might be aware of. Just weapons again of mass destruction, which are not really comparable to mass destruction weapons today, but weapons that, again, can really take out a lot of people. Okay. 2 names to know. This man on top here, his name is Otto von Bismarck. Man on the bottom is Kaiser Wilhelm or William II, both of Germany. Okay. So Germany is going to really be at the center of not only World War II with the Nazis and with Holocaust and all that stuff in World War II, but back to World War I as well. So let's discuss first this man here, Otto von Bismarck. Okay, he's responsible for basically uniting Germany. Okay, Germany used to be a whole bunch. I think it was like 39 or 40 single states. Okay, they were called the Prussian states, where they all were somewhat together and similar in their cultures and in their backgrounds, but they were not a single country. So Germany actually wasn't a unified country until 1871. Okay, so it's about 150 years ago. They're even about 100 years younger, I guess, than you could say the United States. But this man up top here, Otto von Bismarck, he was responsible for basically creating an empire from the German states. Again, it was in 1871. He was really, again, eager to show power and to show strength. He basically took France and made them his scapegoat for everything. He blamed France for everything. He made France like the total enemy, almost like how when Donald Trump came into office and almost made Mexico like the rivalry. He tried to bring everybody together by creating this singular rival. We all need to retaliate. We all need to come together against, in America's case, it was something like a Mexico. In Otto von Bismarck's case of Germany, it was France. And he wanted France to have no allies. He wanted to totally basically smash them. And he wanted to totally make Germany this, overly powerful country. He becomes what they call a chancellor. I'm sure you guys might have heard that word before, a chancellor. He had a great political background. He was an ambassador and working with other countries. He was involved in politics, and he became the prime minister. And then he became, again, the first chancellor, which is a very, very powerful, high-ranking spot in Germany. They called him the Iron Chancellor. If you ever heard of the phrase, he ruled with an iron fist, that was this guy. That was Otto von Bismarck. So he plays a really, really big, significant role. He actually eventually gets dismissed because he doesn't see eye to eye with this man here, who is a Kaiser. A Kaiser was, you might think Kaiser roll, it's like a piece of bread, but Kaiser was another extremely powerful role in Germany. It's almost like a president-prime minister relationship, or a like the queen and the prime minister type of relationship, where there's two very powerful positions, with the Kaiser slightly above and the chancellor slightly underneath it. But next, we'll go with Kaiser Wilhelm. So he came into power in Germany. He's the one that's going to really lead Germany through the beginning of World War I. He's pictured on the bottom there. Great mustache. He was also eager to show Germany's power, how he wanted to basically show the world how strong that they had become. He was eager. He was like, sure, war, let's go. Let's do it. Germany's ready. We're now united. We're ready to go. We have a strong army. We have our Prussian war background. We're ready to go here. So Kaiser Wilhelm and Otto von Bismarck didn't really see eye to eye too much. So like I said earlier, Kaiser Wilhelm does dismiss and get rid of Otto von Bismarck. But Kaiser Wilhelm is eager to show off the power. Eventually, he gets exiled to, I think it was like the Netherlands after World War I was over in 1918. But he thought that everything must be big. So he was similar to Otto von Bismarck in some ways, but again, they didn't see eye to eye. He thought everything should be big. Germany should be powerful. Let's ramp up everything. Let's have militarism. Let's increase imperialism. Let's get as many alliances as we can, except with France. But his temper and his strong willingness to go to war and to basically show off Germany's power is what really, dug them into war. Okay. And then our last 2 points here, I'll read it and then I'll show you a picture. There's now also a high demand for independence in what's called the Balkan Peninsula. So this area here is called the Balkans. It's basically Europe. It's the southeast side of Europe. So this, you would have, for example, Germany and France over here, and Spain and Portugal and those countries. This would be a little more to the right, a little more to the east and south. This was called the Balkans, which used to be for years and years. What empire was this? This was the Ottoman Empire. So now also simultaneously with all of these things going on in 1912 and 1913, there's the Balkan Wars. So countries like, I'm sure you've heard of some of these countries. Some of you guys might even have some cultural roots here. Albania, Bulgaria, Serbia, Bosnia, Croatia, Hungary's right there, Romania. So these are some countries that basically made up what used to be the Ottoman Empire and what they call the Balkans. And while the main MAIN causes are going on, this area is also fighting for their independence to become independent countries. So this whole area itself was also a powder keg. And some of even these countries, not just Germany, some of these countries were also ready to show off their power, to show off their strength, ready to go to war, ready to have an alliance, ready to hop in. So you could see if we were to zoom out on all of Europe, the whole continent is just a powder keg. It's something that is just ready to explode. It's a fire, and somebody's standing around it. 10 people are standing around it with big vats of gasoline ready to just dump on and have it explode. And that explosion eventually is going to be World War I. Okay. All right, guys. Awesome. I think that's enough for a Monday. So next class, we're going to talk about the final straw, the last, what do they call it? The straw that broke the camel's back, or the final push, or the final thing that really leads to and starts the war. It's when a very important person, Franz Ferdinand, gets assassinated by this young man. He was only 19, called Gavrilo Princip. He was a member of this organization called the Black Hand, which we'll get into. So that's what we'll do next time, and we'll dive into the actual start of the war, and we'll talk about some battles and some fighting and the Western Front, the Eastern Front. But for today, just to wrap up, I hope you guys understood the main causes, some of the things that led to the war. Man, I'm out of breath here. Okay. So that's going to be it. So enjoy your day, guys. Thanks for tuning in. And that's it. Go outside today. Enjoy the weather. Enjoy your week. And we'll talk soon. All right, guys. Have a great day.